hiring troubles.
Disastrous.
It's insane.
Disastrous.
Yes. Tell me more.
It's basically impossible. Um, for for me now to persuade someone who has the right ethical or moral code, and it's not even that particular, it's just that you're a good person that wants to do good, um, who's smart, who's hardworking. I think hardworking is the hardest thing because I know plenty of people who are smart and ethical, but they just don't want to work. And I don't know what to do with that. Like I don't know what to say about that. Like, yes, it's a 40-hour a week job, and often it's more. That's just the way that the profession works.
It is.
But
It is.
I don't know. When I was young and coming out of school, we would we would very carefully, like maybe in the fourth or fifth interview, ask a little question about quality of life. Because we knew that if we brought up quality of life in the first interview, they wouldn't hire us.
Yeah.
Now, I can't even get out of a 20-minute interview without being asked about the quality of life. And it almost reminds me of there was a movie that we watched. It was about a guy that was working in like a warehouse, like a Costco. So he went in for an interview and he said, "So do we get Columbus Day off?" And the interviewer's like, "No." And he's like, "Okay." He stands up. "I tried." And
Wow.
he just, yeah, he just leaves. And honestly, I feel like I've had interviews with people like that. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
the other thing for me that is challenging, and I think this is a little bit different than you, is I do different areas of law.
Oh, yeah.
So I get a lot of people that do not want to have to know more than one area of law. So I think that's one area where I'm different than you. But the main thing is it honestly, I don't know how to respond to people when they ask about the hours, because I try to always play down how hard I work. And I even say to people, I don't expect everyone that works here to work as hard as I work. But that's not really something I feel like I should ever say. Like that's already admitting defeat. You know what I mean? Because if I
Yeah.
actually did hire somebody, I would want them to work as hard as I work, because it's the only way to ever really become successful at this profession.
It is. I mean, so I answer the quality of life question the same way every time. People are like, well, how's the quality of life? Plaintiff side employment law. Very poor. It's very poor. Listen, you get in this game. It's not a game, people's lives, but like you get in this business. If you want to turn effort and aggression and attention to detail into dollar bills, that is the only, like, you help people and you make money. And the quality of life is poor.
Yeah.
It's poor. It's just bad. It's terrible. And like, there's things we can do to make it better. Like, I can tell the young attorneys, hey, put this app on your phone so you don't get your emails after 7 p.m.
Yes.
Like, let the partners take care of the nighttime emergencies and stuff like that. There's little things you can do. But at the end of the
Sure.
day, it's like, don't, this is not a happy industry. We're fighting about hate crimes and attempted rape
Yes.
and sexual harassment and like people
Yes.
trying to utilize like really petty things like a $20,000 raise and a title change to get sex out of people. Like it's horrific. Every
Yes.
like there's weird. You work in cases, and then in discovery, a box of really horrific porn comes in, and
Yeah.
like I'm an adult male. Like when I say horrific porn, it's
It's
really
horrific.
really bad. Like you're like, oh my god, I didn't know this was legal. Like, oh, oh, and like it's like almost like hand wringing for me. Like, oh my goodness, Um, it's an ugly, horrific, worst of humanity industry. And then your clients have been through so much that they're not at their best. So they will treat you badly.
They
And
absolutely. That's one of the harder things to deal with, um, until you get. For me, it was becoming more confident and also more accepting. Like I've seen myself when I was in the middle of a divorce. And I was horrible. I was a jerk. So I try to remember that when my clients lose it on me or take it out on me, that it's not personal, and I just kind of handle it the most honest way, which is, hey, I know this is difficult for you. Why don't we talk about this another time or something like that? But yeah,
Yeah.
it is a hard profession. And for me, it does help thinking I'm doing it for a higher good too.
Yeah. I enjoy the component of helping. That is amazing. I will say when somebody does something really hurt, like when a client does something horrific to me, like I had a guy, I always joke I get spit on twice a year. I had a guy spit on me, like a client, because I was like, listen, after that testimony you just gave, like in this deposition, like you got to settle for X amount of dollars. Like this case is,
Mhm.
you chopped our legs out. He didn't care for that. He just spit on me, right? And then like a couple days later, he calls me up. He's like, "You gonna drop me?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Well, I'm sorry I spit on you." And I'm like, "Don't worry, man. That's the last 7% of your contingency. Like
Yeah,
that's why we tack on the extra 7. You know what I mean?" There's a component of like, was that a bad day? Is that like gonna ruin $1,000? Well, yeah, sure. But like, we bake it into the pricing. It's just
true.
you're gonna put up with extra stuff in this field because your client's not getting $40 million usually, right? Like it's just your client's scrapping over 300, 500, 800, whatever it is.
Yes.
And they're going to say things like, that is nothing to me. And you have to then say, are you sure? Because you earn 40 a year. So
Yeah.
like this 800, I mean, it's something to me.
That's 20 years, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's something that, and it's just like having the conversation, that is nothing to me. And you're just like, but I don't know if that's true. Like, have you considered that you could buy a really nice house and have a lot left over and you're going to find a new job tomorrow? Like, it's bad. What they did to you is bad. I don't think it's enough money, but to say it's nothing to you.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
that's the thing about employment law is we're capped.
yeah.
We're
Well, if you don't have the state laws,
yes.
depending on where you are, right?
Yep.
Which is insane. When you're in places where it's just capped and then you have to like do the math, like, oh, are we at like, I mean, I think of it almost as like policy limits in PI, where it's like,
Yes.
well,
Yes.
we've maxed out. There's no more to win. Like, we're at
Yes.
policy limits. We just got 100% of what we could get. And it's almost like, oh, they just didn't care at all. They just want to get this off the books. Oh my God. Like, okay. Hiring troubles are horrific. We cover that pretty well.
Yeah.
I think we covered this a little bit. Plaintiffs' attorneys are another breed. Anything to add on that one?
I actually, of all the movies I've seen that are about law,
Yeah.
aren't they about plaintiffs' lawyers? I mean, isn't that
Right?
actually the dream of
I
how do
think.
you either plaintiffs' lawyers or defense counsel? So it's either or, right?
Yeah.
And when I say defense counsel, obviously I'm talking about criminal.
Yes. Yep.
Yes. We're the ones that step into the breach and take on the difficult things that actually change people's lives.
Yes. No question. I agree with that entirely. And it's funny because the industry hates us.
Yes.
But I wonder how much of that is because society doesn't, right? Like if you're the employment defense attorney or I don't know, the investment banking attorney,
Mhm.
like, everybody kind of hates you. Like they make
Yeah.
jokes about it. Every time you go to a stand-up comedian, they're like, lawyers, send them to space, whatever dumb, right? But then it's like, what do you do for a living? Oh, we represent victims of sexual harassment and workplace discrimination. And people are like,
Thank you.
wait, really?
Yeah,
Like,
they're like, thank you, right?
yeah, a little bit. Yeah. And it's funny because like in the practice of law, we're scum. I don't know if you feel that way, but I do often
I
feel that
do,
way.
I do, I do.
I also feel like the ethical rules only apply to us.
Agree.
It's like
Strongly,
I will
strong. strongly agree, like strenuously 100% agree. And it makes me furious. And I
I
don't mean to talk over you.
no, I think I'm talking over you. I apologize. Um, I used to work at a, well, I used to be have some relationship with a firm, and long before I ever worked at this firm, um, they had like a settlement fixing deal that was obviously illegal for a very large group of people with a defense firm, which
Okay.
clearly unethical, clearly wrong. You can't agree to settle cases for clients you haven't even retained yet, but the client hasn't given you authority. Clearly wrong, right?
Yeah.
And obviously the people involved, their license, think bad things happen to them, and those people, went away and like all this stuff. But I'll never forget. So I was going through the documents before, like when I kind of learned of this, when I was like doing some business with this firm,
Sure.
and the plaintiff side attorneys all paid horrific prices for what they did. All the defense attorneys who were involved were partners at the same firm, making big money, not a mark on their license, but they were parties to the fee fixing deal. And it was there's no question. It wasn't alleged. Like,
Sure.
and they're just there. And I'm taking on cases from this firm, interacting with the same guys who fee fixed, who had settled like essentially a bribe for settlement, and they're just there. And I'm like, oh, the rules are just for us. It's just for, there's no, I don't
Yeah.
understand.
I don't either. And I'm scared of breaking the rules and getting in trouble constantly. But I'm also, I swear, almost every time I go to court and I'm going up against defense counsel, they either stretch the truth or flat out lie. And I'm not saying I've never stretched the truth, because I have. Like, unfortunately, why are you late? And I'm not going to get into explaining that. But when it comes to talking about the law or having a client on the stand, I'm scrupulously honest. And so I get really offended when opposing counsel just sits there and lies, lies, lies. But there's nothing that we can do about it. Because if you try to get personal with opposing counsel, you never win. You almost never win. You've got to have them smoking gun, and the judge is at least somewhat liking you. Otherwise, I get cut off if I try to bring out something opposing counsel has done that's wrong. I get cut off before I even start. So I've learned just keep my mouth shut, fight hard, and beat them, even if it's with them cheating.
So I will say, normally I choose to be friendly with defense counsel. I agree with you, because there's no point. At the end of the day, they just want a bill and then cut you a check. So like,
Yes.
it doesn't pay to go to war with them. I had this one guy, I won't use his name, at a defense firm, who was like 2 blocks up from my office. And
Mhm.
he was a big rainmaker, but like a trash attorney. Like, his associates did everything for him. But he's a big rainmaker for his firm, big 10 defense firm. And he would always get on the phone and just shout an incorrect standard for retaliation. Like, it wasn't the correct standard under the federal case law. It wasn't the correct for New York State. And it definitely wasn't correct for New York City. Like, it was absolutely false. And he, like, the language he would use was like something he'd been saying for like 4 or 5 years. And I would every time be like, that's not the law. That's literally, you're just saying words. This is nonsense. And eventually one day I got so miffed. I bought his name as a domain name. And I threw up the exact language, because I had jotted it down, that he would always say.
Yeah.
And I would be like, hey, listen, this is what this gentleman says is the standard for retaliation. But if you happen to be litigating with him, here's the actual standards under federal, New York State, New York City. And he never spoke to me again. We had like a weird tussle where he was like, he said some stuff. He was not happy. And I was like, well, listen, Mike, we'll just say, listen, Mike, I'm 2 blocks down. If you want to get together and talk about this, like, I'm more than happy. Um,
That's
and
funny.
he's never, it's been 6 years. He has never gotten the phone with me again. Never once, just associates. Um, and the associates know he's a blowhard and an idiot. Like they know that's not the law. And they know they're just billing, and defense counsel will say things like, listen, I need you to I need a bill before I can settle this. Like, can you generate
Really?
some? Yeah, oh yeah, 100%. You go to the bar with them, you settle a case. Like, listen, you like that settlement? That was a good. We're pretty happy with it. Everybody, your client did well. Um, Listen, your associate did some bullshit discovery demands. There's like, it's trash. I'm like, no, let me go look at it. That's insane. Thank you for letting me know. Like, no, no, no. Come here, come here, come here. We need real discovery. Like, we need a bill. All right. He's like, I don't think you can say that to me. Like, I understand you've had three
That's
drinks, but
amazing.
but I mean, thank you for the warning that somebody that we were working with did a mediocre job on discovery. Like, I will absolutely address that. Um, what are you asking for? Something we can sink our teeth into. Oh, okay. Um,
Sure.
yeah. Would you like me to schedule 20 depositions? Um, 15. Like, oh, okay.
That's hilarious. I've
Okay.
never had someone be quite that bold.
It's
Um,
insane.
I would laugh though, because I can tell when defense counsel is just churning,
They
churning,
do.
churning, churning.
They do. It's you see these summary judgment motions where you're like, why? This isn't going to win.
Yeah.
Like, there are 11 claims here, and you have a 50-50 shot at knocking out one of them. Was this a
Yes.
wise use of $30,000 of your client's funds? I would suspect not. It's just like, this is
Yeah.
nonsense. But yeah, the rules don't apply to them ever. Us, everything, right?